National University Sudan, Faculty of Administrative Science. Hello everyone, welcome back to our microeconomics course. In today's lecture, we are going to study one of the most important concepts in the consumer theory: price effect, substitution effect, and income effects. Whenever the price of a product changes, consumers usually change the quantity they purchase. But have you ever wondered why this happens? Economists explain this behavior using two separate forces: the substitution effect and the income effect. When these two effects are combined, they produce what we call the price effect. By the end of this lecture, you should be able to define the three effects, distinguish between them, explain how consumers respond to price changes, apply these concepts to normal goods, inferior goods, and given goods. Let us begin. Price effect. When the price of a good changes, consumers usually change the quantity they purchase. This overall response is known as the price effect. We mean by the price change if the price increases or decreases. So the price effect is simply the total change in quantity demanded that results from a change in the price of a good, while assuming that consumers' tastes and money income remain unchanged. For example, imagine that the price of a cup of coffee falls from $5 to $4. Since coffee is now cheaper, most consumers will buy more coffee. But why? There are actually two reasons. First, coffee has become cheaper compared with tea. Second, consumers now have greater purchasing power because they are spending less money to buy the same amount of coffee. These two reasons are exactly what economists call the substitution effect and the income effect. We can now summarize this relationship very simply. Look to this rectangular. Price effect equal substitution effect plus income effect. This relationship is one of the most important ideas in consumer demand theory. Let us come to the substitution effect. The first component. The substitution effect occurs because consumers compare prices. People naturally substitute away from relatively expensive goods and toward relatively cheaper goods. Suppose you regularly buy both coffee and tea. If the price of coffee falls while the price of tea remains unchanged, coffee becomes relatively cheaper. Since coffee now provides better value for money, many consumers will buy more coffee and less tea. Notice something very important. Your income has not changed. Your preferences have not changed. Only the relative prices have changed. That is why this is called the substitution effect. Consumers simply substitute one product for another. This idea explains much of our everyday shopping behavior. When one supermarket offers a discount, many customers switch to that store. When one smartphone brand lowers its price, consumers may switch brands. Whenever relative prices change, substitution occurs. Characteristics of the substitution effects. Let us summarize the key characteristics first. It occurs because relative prices change. Second, the consumer remains at the same level of satisfaction or utility at the same indifference curve. Economists often illustrate this using an indifference curve. Although we won't go deeply into indifference curve analysis today, remember that the substitution effect assumes the consumer's satisfaction or utility remains constant. Third, the substitution effect works always opposite to the direction of the price change. If price rises, quantity demanded decreases. This relationship is always true. That is why economists say the substitution effect is always negative with respect to prices. Let us now move to the second component, income effect. Unlike the substitution effect, this effect is related to purchasing power. Suppose your monthly income is $100. Initially, coffee cost $5 per cup. Now the price falls to $4. Your salary has not changed. You still earn $100. However, your purchasing power has increased. With the same income, you can now afford more coffee and perhaps even buy additional tea or snacks. Economists describe this increase in purchasing power as an increase in real income. Notice that your money income has not changed. Only your real income has increased. This additional purchasing power changes your consumption decisions, and that change is called income effect. What are the characteristics of the income effect? The income effect behaves differently depending on the type of good. Let us examine the three possibilities. First, normal goods. For normal goods, consumers buy more when their real income increases. Therefore, when the price falls, the income effect is positive. What are the examples of normal goods? Examples include better quality food, clothing, electronics, and restaurant meals. Second, inferior goods. Inferior goods behave differently. As people's purchasing power increases, they often buy less of these goods. Examples may include instant noodles, low-quality transportation, or second-hand products. Therefore, the income effect becomes negative. Third, given goods. Given goods are extremely rare. For these goods, the negative income effect is so strong that it outweighs the substitution effect. As a result, people actually buy less when the price falls. This seems unusual, but it can occur under very special conditions involving essential goods consumed by very low-income households. Let us come to the relationship between the three effects. Let us compare the three concepts. The price effect is the overall change in quantity demanded, while the substitution effect occurs because one product becomes relatively cheaper or more expensive. The income effect occurs because purchasing power changes after the price changes. Think of it this way. Suppose the price of coffee falls consumers buy more coffee because, first, coffee is now cheaper than tea. That is the substitution effect. Second, consumers feel effectively richer because their money now goes further. That is the income effect. Together, these two responses create the total increase in coffee demand. That total increase is called the price effect. Also, we are continuing to discuss or to explain the relationship among the effects. Now let us see how these effects differ across various goods. Price effect is equal to substitution effect plus income effect. Both for normal goods, both effects work in the same direction. The substitution effect increases demand. The income effect also increases demand. Therefore, quantity demanded rises significantly when price falls. But for the inferior goods, the substitution effect still increases demand. However, the income effect works in the opposite direction. Consumers feel richer and may purchase less of the inferior good. Fortunately, the substitution effect is usually stronger. Therefore, overall demand still increases. For given goods, the substitution effect still encourages consumers to buy more. However, the negative income effect is even larger. As a result, overall demand decreases when price falls. This creates the famous upward sloping demand curve for given goods. Although given goods are rare, they are important because they illustrate that consumer behavior can sometimes differ from the normal law of demand. Please try to solve these matching questions. Let us finish today's lecture by reviewing the matching questions. Let me try the question one with you. Price effect matches with total effect of a price change. So A with 2. Substitution effect matches with change caused by relative prices. So P will match with 3. Income effect matches with change in purchasing power. So C matches with 1. Try to solve question 2